Derek.
And I'm Jonathan.
We like beer.
We're a podcast by beer lovers, for beer lovers, with beer creators.
Some of our best stories start with beer. And now it's time to make beer the story.
Each hoppy pour has been on an often unexpected journey to become the brews you love.
So pour another round and drink with us as we explore the stories behind your favorite beers and breweries. And if you like beer, like breweries, like some bad jokes and great puns, and like this podcast, be sure to subscribe so you can learn about all our upcoming breweries on tap. Have you heard? The fourth annual Pour Another Round Outdoor Winter Beer Festival is coming to a new venue in 2026.
March 21st, 2026 at Hinterland Brewery, right next to Lambeau Field. Join us for unlimited pours from 15 plus breweries, food vendors, brewery and Pour Another Round merch sales, and much, much more.
You can get your tickets now. They're just $40 in advance or $50 at the gate. That gets you a commemorative tasting glass, unlimited tastings from 1 to 4 on March 21st.
Head to pouranotherround.com to get your tickets now. Please drink responsibly and take advantage of free designated driver tickets. Welcome to this week's episode of Pour Another Round, where we're here to discover and share the stories behind the breweries filling up your glass. Today, we've got Trent Snyder from Bridge Up Brewing in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, here on the podcast. So, Trent, thanks so much for joining us here on Pour Another Round and giving us some insight into Bridge Up Brewing.
Yeah, you bet. I'm super pumped to be here. It's I think we've talked. It's been a couple of years that you've been chasing me to do this, so I've got 2 more years worth of stories to share, and now I'm real happy to be here.
Well, speaking of those stories, Trent, get us started on how Bridge Up Brewing came to be. You're located, like John just mentioned, in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, which anyone that's not familiar, that's right as you get into Door County, an iconic area to visit in Wisconsin. You're maybe the first brewery that people might go past on their way into Door County. Tell us about the history of Bridge Up and how everything came to be.
Sure. It's a pretty interesting story, really. So I grew up in Door County, went to college in Minnesota. I got a teaching degree, moved to the Twin Cities area, met my wife, started a family, lived there for a long time. And then I decided to move back and then move my family with me to Door County. I had to quit my job in the Twin Cities. My wife was able to take her job with her, and she works out of our home. And I told her, I said, I want to find a job that gets me kind of getting back into the community. Even though I have a vacation home here, and we were here quite a bit, I just felt like I didn't know anyone anymore. When you're not living here, you kind of lose track of who's who and what's what. So I told her I really wanted to find a job that got me back, knowing how things worked and who people were. And I couldn't find that. So I took a job in the industrial park for a company that builds big gantry cranes that pull boats out of the water. It's a great company. They sell these cranes all over the world and stuff. But I knew it wasn't the end job for me. And I was coming home from Costco, I think, on a Saturday one day, and I got a phone call from someone I didn't know. So I didn't answer the phone and listened to the message when I got home, and it was my now business partner calling me and asking to talk to me about brewing. And that's all he said. So I met with him the next day, and probably an hour and a half conversation, very consultative in nature. He was asking me, high overview of what's the brewing process and how much would it cost to start a brewery? I didn't really know the answers to any of these questions because I'd never done any of this stuff before. I mean, I could talk to him about how to brew a 5-gallon batch of beer in my garage because that's really what I'd been doing up to that point. But after about an hour and a half, he looks at me and he goes, I think you're the guy for the job. And I'm like, what job is that? And he goes, well, clearly you know more about brewing beer than I do, and I'd like to start a brewery, and, do you want to do that with me? And I'm like, man, I didn't know what to say, so I said, hey, can I have 48 hours to think about this? And he seemed very, surprised by that response. But so I went home, and my wife's like, how'd that go? I'm like, it was good, but you're not going to believe this. This guy, again, who I had never met before, wants me to start a brewery with him. And she's like, man, that sounds cool. I'm like, yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing. And she's like, oh, you'll figure it out. I said, that's exactly what he said. which scared the hell out of me because I
That's
had
a
no idea.
supportive wife right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because she's like, well, that sounds like kind of what you were looking for. So that'll get you back in the community and that sort of thing. So I really was nervous because, like I said, I had never brewed anything more than 5 gallons on a turkey fryer in my garage and used snow to cool it down in the winter and that sort of thing. So I came back to him a couple days later and just said, I've got some reservations. I love the concept. I love the idea, but I'm nervous that I don't know if I can brew beer that people want to drink, and I said, you're trying to make money off of this and, your reputation and this, that. I'm like, I just don't know if I'm the guy. He's like, well, how can I make you feel better how can we, come to some agreement on you doing this? And I'm like, I would love to like meet with some we knew we'd be like a smaller brewery just based on the space.
Yep.
I kind of thought we'd be like a 3 or a 5 barrel brew house. So I said, I'd love to meet with some smaller breweries to talk about like, how do I do it? I didn't even know how to like scale a recipe. I just, so he's like, well, where are these breweries? And I said, well, I know a bunch of them are in California. So he's like, cool. So he flew me out to California and I had met, I had reached out, via Instagram and Facebook and stuff to a couple, smaller breweries that I was familiar with and got out there and dude, they were so cool to me. All these guys, they're like, man, we started just like you. We were all garage guys and, one of my buddies' grandpa died and he got a big inheritance and he's like, we're going to start a brewery and you're going to all come work for me. And we had to lean on other breweries to kind of figure it out. So one guy sat with me the whole day and he kind of taught me how to like scale my homebrew recipes, kind of the math involved, and which was helpful because I had zero idea on how to do that. And then one brewery kind of taught me about saving yeast, because they're like, well, you've been a home brewer. You just buy a little packet of yeast for, $5 and then you just dump that down the drain. Well, now you're going to be buying bricks of yeast for, $150, $200. Gets expensive. So taught me how to like wash it and save it. And he's like, yeast gets better the more you use it. It's like a sourdough starter, essentially. It ferments cleaner and it ferments faster. So you're going to want to save this stuff. And then another brewery talked to me about like marketing and like how to buy like really cool swag, that people actually want to wear and like stickers and, website and stuff like that. So, I came back and I said, let's do it. I felt pretty good. And I just basically said, I don't want any risk. I'm telling you right now that I might suck at this job. So I don't want any risk. And he's like, cool. And here we are 8 years later, 7, 8 years later, that was 2018. We got we're the only brewery in Door County that has 2 locations. Yeah. So that's kind of that's the story. I went from not knowing anything really, about brewing, and I still don't. I still make a lot of mistakes to making, I think a pretty darn good product that people want to drink.
So you got your start home brewing beer.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first thing that made you say, yeah, I want to try home brewing? I love to drink beer all the time, but home brewing has never caught my interest.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little complex for me. I'd rather leave that up to the professionals. What was it for you that made you say, yeah, I want to try home brewing?
Yeah, my grandma bought me a Mr. Beer kit for Christmas
Okay.
one year, which I don't even know if they make those anymore, but it was like a plastic. It was looked like a beer barrel, like an old school, like wooden beer barrel. Couple gallons, maybe 3 gallons or 2 or 3 gallons, and then a bunch of like liquid, like malt extract and powdery stuff. And I had in my closet, it moved with me from apartment to apartment. And my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, was like, what is this thing? And I'm like, it's like a beer, make your own beer kit. She's like, well, either do it or let's just throw it away. And she's like, when did you get this? I'm like, I don't know, like 5 years ago from grandma. She's like, oh, it's probably bad. She's like, let's just do it. So we did it in my small apartment in Minneapolis, and it smelled really bad. She thought it smelled bad. I thought it smelled good, but it actually turned out like, it wasn't good, but I'm like, well, this was beer,
It was
when
beer.
you opened it, the bottles, it had fizz, and I'm like, this is kind of neat, and I probably overplayed it because she thought I was really, my wife now, my girlfriend thought I really loved it. So it was either my birthday or Christmas, whatever happened first, she got me kind of like a classic homebrew starter kit from like Midwest Supply, which was kind of had their headquarters in Minneapolis. So it was like the glass carboys and, all the brushes and crap like that. So I worked on that system for a long time, just doing kits, like clone kits. I'd go and be like, hey, what do you got that's like a Bell's Two Hearted? And they're like, oh, we got this Bell's Two Hearted clone. And I did kits for like, I think 2 years or so, until I'm like, this is kind of boring. And I had no idea why I was doing what I was doing. Like I was just following the recipe. Like I wasn't getting any better. I was just following the recipe. So I took a couple classes at Midwest Supply. They offered like some homebrew courses and I met like other people. But a lot of those guys were doing like all grain brewing and stuff. So they helped me kind of get into that and understand the process and kind of like, why are you doing this at this time? And, the difference in hops, and then like, helping me convert like Coleman coolers into mash tuns and stuff like that. And that's kind of where I really started kind of geeking out on it. Cause I kind of like, I finally like understood like what was happening here and just the role, like how temperature is important and this and that and the other thing. So I just got really good at home brewing. So I was like the guy in the neighborhood for like block parties. Like I didn't have to bring a crock pot of soup or anything. I just brought beer over, which was great because I had a shitload of beer in my basement at all times, a ton. So, yeah. So that's that was that's all I wanted to be. I just wanted to be a really good home brewer. And I figured eventually I'd kind of stop, because I had kids and stuff too. And I figured, well, eventually I'll just kind of stop doing this and it'll just collect dust off in the corner. And that's kind of where I was at when I moved back to Door County. Like, and that the thing is, my realtor is my business partner's brother. And he's the one who called his brother and said, hey, I just sold a house to a guy. He's got a crap load of brewing equipment. You should talk to him about the brewery.
Funny how that works out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember what, like the first beer that you homebrewed where you were like, well, shit, I'm actually good at this?
I would say, yeah. I think it was a cream ale.
Okay.
And it was an all grain batch that I did. And it was kind of like halfway through my understanding of all grain brewing, but man, it turned out like, I had no idea what a cream ale even was. I had no idea. But dude, it was great. It was great. And actually that recipe that I was kind of writing, that was like probably the fifth recipe that I actually like wrote kind of myself and like farted around with. So that recipe is the one that I use today for my knee-high cream ale for Bridge Up.
Okay.
That was like the first beer that I brewed. That was the first beer that I brewed commercially because that was the one I felt like, I feel like I nailed this one. So it's like our second selling beer. So people seem to like it.
That was going to be my follow-up, was how many recipes from your home brewing days have carried over into the commercial Bridge Up beers that are your core beers that you're...
I would say we've got 10 beers right now in our portfolio, and we've had other ones that we've retired. I would say half are ones that came pretty much directly out of my notebook from my homebrew days. With tweaks here and there because I can afford, at this point I could afford different hops, knowing like, oh, this would be a much better hop in this beer, that sort of thing. And maybe like a grain here or there, but the core recipe, I'd say at least half.
So for listeners who aren't familiar with the Door County area, tell us about the name tell us about the name Bridge Up.
Good brewery.
And where yes, it is a good brewery. I got bridges on my brain.
There's a lot of bridge breweries. We had a hell of a time finding a name, but
there really are. So tell us about the name Bridge Up Brewing and where that came from and what the significance is to the area that you're in.
Sure. Also a pretty serendipitous story. So we were at the point where we were going to meet. It was my business partner, myself, and a couple other people that had a meeting to discuss the names. So it was my job to kind of come up with a list of names, because at the end of the day, it was kind of my decision anyways. But I was on my way to the meeting, so my brewery sits below a pizza place in Sturgeon Bay. It's called Sonny's Pizzeria. My business partner owns the pizza restaurant. I'm in the lower level of that building is where the brewery and my original tap room is. So I was coming to Sonny's to go through the names, and I got stuck at the bridge. So there's a steel bridge, and there's 3 bridges in Sturgeon Bay, but there's a steel bridge, an old bridge that they raised a bunch of money to save it, but it's like the old school, like steel girders, and that thing goes up in the summertime every half hour on the hour, and then as needed. So like if the Coast Guard needs to get through or there's an emergency or whatever. So anyway, I get stuck at the bridge, and so I texted my business partner and said, "Hey, I'm going to be late. The bridge is up." And then as soon as I sent that, I'm like, this freaking bridge is always up, and we're right next to it. So I just scribbled it down on the bottom of the list of names, like Bridge is up, and that was the name we chose. We talked about it, and they're like, "What's that at the bottom?" I'm like, "Oh, I just wrote Bridge is up," and they're like, "Man, that's kind of a cool
That's
name."
it.
So we just got rid of and it's Bridge Up Brewing. I mean, we're right there by the steel bridge, so if you're sitting outside enjoying a beer, you can see it and you can hear it when the bridge goes up. And so our tagline for our brewery is "Bottoms up when the bridge is up." And when we first opened, I had wooden nickels made up for like a buy one get one. And when the bridge was up and there were cars lined up for what seemed like miles, I would send some of my staff out and go door to door and give them these wooden nickels and say, "Hey, next time you see the bridge up, just pull in the parking lot and wait it out and have a beer."
You know, growing up, when I was a little kid, my aunt actually lived on the other side of that bridge. And
Okay.
as a little kid, I loved going out and seeing that bridge go up. It was one of those funny things to see. And now here we are. We have a brewery right on the other side of that.
You betcha.
So for Door County, it's definitely a very recognizable landmark to see that bridge and watching it go up. It's something that's very appropriate for the name of a brewery sitting right there.
Yeah, and it's cool because when it goes up, it's got the old school like alarm. It's like clang, 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 and then like the arms go down, and it's just all very old and mechanical. And it's kind of like nothing is like that anymore, really. Like
Mhm.
this thing is still plugging away out here the way it did. Like I don't know how old the thing is. Old.
Yeah. Well, so you've got your tap room located right underneath Sonny's Pizza, but you've also got another tap room in Door County. Tell us about that second location and when listeners can go visit that location and what's different about that location from your main tap room.
Sure. So I would say it was towards the tail end of COVID. Things were starting to kind of open back up in Door County, and I had always told my business partner like we need a location in Northern Door. We need a location in Door County because a lot of people don't consider Sturgeon Bay Door County. It's a place to get gas and stop at the grocery store before you get to Door County, and that Door County is typically Egg Harbor and north, kind of where all the shops are and all the resorts are and bars and restaurants and all that stuff. So I knew I was missing a bunch of people that would probably want to stop there, but just probably would never know we were there or just wouldn't make the time to do so. So I had always kind of had my eyes open for a location. And it was in February, and I got a phone call from Jason, my business partner, and he's like, "Hey, what do you think of the Cherry Hut?" And I'm like, "The Cherry Hut." I'm like, Ray's Cherry Hut. So there was this roadside market when I was a kid up here. It was called Ray's Cherry Hut. It was right off the side of the road. It was like a crusty old ranch style market with a old codger in there making jam and selling pies and stuff. And he's like, "What do you think of the Cherry Hut?" And I'm like, "I don't really think of the cherry. Why are you asking me?" I said, I don't even think it's the Cherry Hut anymore because it wasn't the Cherry Hut. Someone had bought it and renamed it like White Cottage Red Door or something like that. And I'm like, "Why are you asking?" He's like, "Well, no, for like the brewery or for the tap room. What do you think about that?" And I'm like, "I don't, it's a roadside market. It's like a one level ranch, like market." He's like, "No, but there's like this metal shed, like pole barn off the back." He was like really pressing me on this thing. And I'm like, you didn't buy it, did you?" He's like, "Well, I put in an offer." And I'm like, "Oh my God. All right." He's like, "We should probably go take a ride and take a look at it, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah." So we hop in his car and we cruise up to Fish Creek. And this is February, mind you. We get up there and the mounds of snow that were over the entrance to the driveway, like you couldn't drive through there with a plow truck. So we literally had to park on a side road and climb over these mountains of snow and like trudge through the snow. And I wasn't dressed for that. I had like tennis shoes and jeans on. And just so that we could, look in the windows of this place. And like, so I'm looking in the windows. I'm like, yep, that's the market. That's how I remember it. It's a market. And he's like, no, but in the back. So there's no windows to look into the metal shed. So it was like a wasted trip to go there because I couldn't see anything. And he's like, yeah. So like, I'm thinking right in here. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it's a big empty metal shed. I think we could probably do something with that. And I'm like, well, what about like the market? Like, who's going to buy that? He's like, well, that would be part of it. And I'm like, well, who's going to run that? He's like, I figured you could handle that. So lo and behold, we bought a roadside market with a metal shed off the back in February, and we opened it that May.
Wow.
So I was balls to the wall trying to figure out more so what to do with the market thing. I'm like, I'm never ran a market before, although my folks owned a gift shop in Fish Creek when I was young. But it had a wine room, it had a kitchen, you wanted to do food and all this stuff. I had to figure out how to get pickles and pie and then let alone get a tap system put in. And anyway, it our first year sucked. I hated it. I wanted to quit. But we're on this last summer was our 5th summer and we're rolling now. I mean, it's a kick-ass place to be. And we do live music on the weekends. We put in this spectacular patio. Spent a bunch of money. It's got five fire pits. We got TVs outside to watch football or baseball on. Live music on the weekends. The tap room on the inside is eclectic and kitschy and has taxidermy, and got a jukebox in there and like old shit on the walls. And then the market's really great. Good pickles and pies and jam. And then we have a wine room with 20 of our own private label wines. We got a kitchen doing really kick-ass food. It's basically elevated food truck food. So like hot dogs, tacos, quesadillas, salads, that sort of thing. So it's a one-stop shop, and there's no place like it in Door County. And our goal is to get you there and keep you there. So you either come for a beer because you've Googled us and you found out where we are, or you're 60 and you came for a pie or a pickle and you saw someone walk by with a beer and they're like, where'd you get that? And you're like, oh, it's back there. So, people are still figuring out that we have all the things that we have. But no, it's great. So that's our secondary location. It's just south of Fish Creek on Highway 42. It's about a mile and a half till you get to Fish Creek.
And when is that one open?
That's mid-May. So we typically open the weekend before Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
And then we close at the end of October.
Yep. Makes
sense.
Open
7 days a week. Markets open 10 to 6, kitchens 11 to 6, and the tap rooms 11 to 8.
And then your Sturgeon Bay tap room, that's year-round. Anyone can stop by. Cool.
Yep, year-round. Go grab a pizza at Sonny's, bring it down, have a beer, go have a beer, and then go up to eat at Sonny's, or don't go to Sonny's at all. Have some cheese curds in the tap room, whatever you want. But the tap room in Sturgeon is a beautiful location. It's right on the water. The best sunsets you're going to see in Door County happen there every night in the summertime. It's awesome. And it's so cozy in there. It's all exposed cedar, and it's really fun.
So we've talked a little bit about the vibe of the tap rooms. Tell us about like the brewing capacity. How many beers can you brew? What types of beer are you brewing? And what types of beer do you like to brew?
Yeah, so my capacity is small. So we're 1 barrel. We can brew 1 barrel of beer at a time. So I work with my buddies down at Three Sheeps in Sheboygan.
Nice.
They brew. I use their facility and brew there. We exploded so fast that, so sidebar, we couldn't get any bigger than a 1 barrel system because there's a basement in that building. And the fire marshal said, you either have to spend $80,000 to reinforce the floor or be a 1 barrel brewery. So we were a 1 barrel brewery, and I almost quit because I was brewing back to back to back batches every day just to keep up. And I was brewing the same 3 beers every day. So I talked to my buddy Bill Tressler at Hinterland Brewing and worked with him to help offload some of my at least the first 3 beers so I could work on other beers and stuff like that. And then moved on to my buddies at Three Sheeps because they were able to do some smaller batches and stuff for me because we're so seasonal and stuff up here. So every beer that you drink started in Sturgeon Bay and started in the brewery that's right behind the bar. But that's been pretty much relegated to like our experimental brewery
Yeah.
So that's where I'm always tinkering and making beers and putting it out on tap in the tap room just to see if people like it. Or we have a pickle beer that people really love, so I'll brew that from time to time. Just some one-off stuff that people really like, I'll brew. So it's just kind of our fart around brewery now. Most of the action happens down in Three Sheeps, and I'll be honest with you, the quality of the beer got so much better when we went with those guys. Just because when you brew on a scale like that, the
Sure.
consistency is there. And those guys are so smart. They've got really smart guys that just know what they're doing. I am not a smart guy, and I do not know what I'm doing. So it's a great relationship with those guys. I love it. I love that my beer is brewed there. It's just a great relationship.
That's awesome. The spirit of collaboration is such an important thing in brewing, and it's great to have partners like that.
For sure. So the beer question, we pride ourselves on not specializing at Bridge Up. So we pride ourselves on having a variety of styles. Because at the end of the day, I'm in the business of selling beer. So when you walk into Bridge Up, whether it's in Sturgeon Bay or at the Cherry Hut, I want you to find a style that you're familiar with. Everybody's on a different path in beer drinking, and some people's path stopped in college at Keystone Light and Busch Light and that's great. Yeah, absolutely. I've got a lot of that in my refrigerator in my garage, and I drank a ton of that for a long time. But everybody's paths are different, so I don't want to alienate anyone. I've been to a bunch of breweries where it's very IPA heavy, and that's great because I like IPAs. I have no problem with that. My wife, on the other hand, is not. So I don't want that to happen in my tap room. So we got a cream ale, we got a lager, we got a pilsner, we've got a West Coast IPA. I hate that I have to differentiate that, but I've got a West Coast IPA, we've got a hazy IPA, we've got a double IPA, we have a sour, we've got a American wheat. So we pretty much run the gamut of styles. So everybody should be able to find something that they like. If it were up to me, my ideal brewery is a brewery that specializes in IPAs. I love IPAs. The danker, the better for me. And I wasn't always like that. The first IPA I had was with my brother, who's 7 years older than me. I was in college. We got together for Christmas, and he brought a Two Brothers IPA. It's Two Brothers Brewing Company. I believe it's down in the Chicagoland area. And it was like a bomber bottle, and he pours it. And it was like we went to midnight service at this small church by my cottage, and it was probably like 12:30 in the morning. We're sitting by the fire, and he pours this beer, and we're gonna have this like brotherly moment. And I take a drink, and I'm like, what in the hell is this? And he's like, what? I'm like, it is like drinking a box of rusty nails. What the hell is this? And I was like the king of Keystone Light in college, so that's what I was drinking. And he was rolling. He thought that was the funniest thing ever. And I'll be honest with you, it didn't get better the warmer it got. But now I would drink that straight from the bottle. That's the kind of stuff I like. So, and I'm actually drinking an IPA from Maine Brewing Company. I don't know if you guys are familiar, probably, but it's called Lunch. It's my favorite brewery I've never been to. So that's what I thought. I thought I'd open a bottle of this and drink that while I'm talking to you guys today.
Favorite brewery you've never been to that's an interesting side tangent that I feel like I could go down, and I don't know if
Sure.
I'm gonna bring that question into more episodes because that's
I think with like Instagram and Facebook and stuff, you see all these breweries and you can see pictures. You're like, man, that place looks so kick ass. But Maine Brewing Company is probably the coolest place. If I ever got divorced, which I probably never will. I won't get divorced.
I was going to say, let's not hope for that.
I would move to Maine, and I would get like a camper cab for my pickup, and I would park in their parking lot and just beg for a job. I don't care if it's like picking weeds out of the cracks. Yeah. I just go on their website all the time, and it's just, the website is so beautiful, and just what they stand for, and I've had probably 4 or 5 different beers that they put out because one of the distributors up here can get it every now and again. It is so clean. It is so good. They're not doing a ton of beers. They really, want to be doing quality stuff, and they give back to the environment. All their employees get okay, whether you're the janitor or you're the head brewer, and so cool, So I support them as best I can. But yeah, that's my favorite brewery I've never been to.
I love it.
Derek, what's your favorite brewery you've never been to?
I'm going to one up this conversation. I'm going to go with my favorite brewery that I've never been to or ever had their beer.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with Treehouse in Massachusetts. They're right now maybe the top of my brewery bucket list. I've never had their beer. I've never been there, but I hear amazing things from them. Everybody I ever talk to that's been there says it's amazing and I would love their beer. But for brewery that I've never been to, I'll go Alchemy, also out on the East Coast, out in, I think they're Vermont.
That's Heady Topper beer, right?
Yeah. And it's great beer. My mom and dad did a road trip out there a couple of years ago, and then I had a buddy that was out there a couple of years ago, and each time they've brought me back some beer from Alchemy, and it's just delicious beer. So I'll give them my favorite brewery that I've never been to. John, how about you?
Brewery Omegang.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I've had some of their beer. I've never been.
Their beer's really good, and it just looks like a beautiful, beautiful property.
I got a Three Philosophers sitting over there right now. That's actually kind of calling my. That would turn into a different kind of a night. That's a heavy beer.
Let's do it.
That's very far from the high life that I'm drinking right now.
Yeah, no, I get it. You can't get too loose lipped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Trent, you certainly do have a wide variety of beers, and we just talked about the different styles that you have. And people can look at your kind of lineup and all the different can arts that you have as well. Talk about both the can art, but also the beer names and where some of those concepts come from.
Sure. So you guys looked at the can art?
Yeah.
It's pretty kick ass, isn't it? Yeah. No, so I have to tell you, I say we're a no ego brewery. Okay. You can come as you are. You can come at wherever you are in your beer journey to our brewery and you're gonna have a great time. Like no ego, like who cares? I'm the first one, I have no idea what I'm doing. But the one thing I prided myself on was my labels, my original labels. Like I loved it. Like it had our logo. I love our logo. I think our logo is so cool. It is so clean. It's so recognizable. It's vertical, which is different. So anyway, so basically the logo took front and center on the can. And then in the back of the logo, like the white arrow was the map, like the topographical map of Sturgeon Bay. So like there was like this, like all these lines and stuff. And it was like the channel that we sit right next to. And like the only thing that was different on each can was these two colored stripes on each side that signified what the beer, and obviously the name of the beer, but like all the cans looked the same. It looked so cool and just different colored stripes. So like our Escarpment Citra Pale Ale that we no longer make was like green and our Knee High was yellow. And I loved it. Well, my distributor was like, your beer's not selling. I'm like, why? And they're like, I think it's the can art. It just doesn't pop off the shelf and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, cool. All right. The one thing I love the most, I'm like, I don't care. So I had this girl, her name's Josie Schultz. She would come into our tap room all the time. She's this awesome watercolor artist who lives up here. And I just asked her, I said, hey, do you ever would you consider doing, art for my beer cans? And she was all about it. So she just does all the art. So sometimes I just get like, when I was changing over and I had these established beers in our portfolio, I just gave her a 6-pack each. And I said, go to town, drink the beer, do whatever you want, get drunk and paint. And she came up with these fantastic, and they're so bright. And you could just tell that the same person does. She's got her own like whimsical style. She's so easy to work with, and she's great. So that's the can art story, Josie Schultz. You can look her up on Facebook or Instagram. I think her handle is h2joecolor.com. And on Instagram, she does beautiful work. We sell her stuff in our market in Fish Creek. So that's the can.
Record,
yeah.
You'd get totally different results if you told Jonathan and I to get drunk and watercolor paint.
Yeah.
Could be fun.
Right, exactly.
But you would not get something you'd want to put on a can.
Sounds like a fun event to do that.
Yeah.
Watercolor.
Maybe we should host an event at Bridge Up called Get Drunk and Paint.
Let's do it.
Hey,
I'm in.
We'll be there.
Perfect. Oh, it'd be a disaster.
Oh yeah, we'd have to put some plastic down on the floor for sure.
Yes.
And then what was the other part of that question, Jonathan? I forget.
The beer names
Oh, the beer names. Yeah.
and where they come from.
That's the fun part. Oh, they all come from me because that's like the fun part. But it's also the most challenging part because you think you got this great name and then you go out there and you Google it and you go on Untapped and you look at it and you find more
And there's
often than not
13 other
that
beers named the same.
somebody already has it. And I don't understand how you can have there, like you said, there are 13 of the same ones. I'm like, how do you get away with having the same name? But anyways, um, I like it because it is a challenge, but all of our beer names have something to do with Door County, either loosely to do with Door County or something like really significant to do with Door County. So, for example, our 1851 lager, 1851 is the year that Door County became a county, that sort of thing. And like our amber sunsets, there's just really cool sunsets up here.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah,
where the names
got
come from.
Sturgeon is your New England hazy.
Yeah.
You've got you pick your cherry ale is you pick. I assume a nod to the Cherry Hut market.
Yeah, it's the old, yeah, it's like when I was a kid, if you wanted to pick your own cherries, you'd just drive down some side road and there'd be like a hand painted sign that said you pick and you'd pull over and you'd just pick them and then you'd find a place. There was just like an old tackle box with a, put
Put
your money in
put
there
your
and
10 bucks into the tackle box, and that's what you got.
right. Yeah, exactly. So that's a nod to the old school Door County cherry stuff.
I particularly like the When Seagulls Attack name.
Yeah, if you've ever been, in Door County at the beach or on a dock at the marina, and especially if you're with kids and you brought a little picnic along, and your youngest decides to frickin' throw some potato chips up in the air, and pretty soon there's about 60 seagulls dive bombing you and shitting all over you. Like, no, so
Trent, this
that's
feels personal, Trent.
oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. I've been there many times, many times. I've found myself saying, "No, don't throw that." Oh, and then you know,
It's fun.
20 birds later.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about where the brewery has come from to where we're at today. What about the future for Bridge Up? What exciting things are we looking at for this summer, for the Fish Creek location or the main location? Anything new and in the works that you've got
Yeah,
that you want to share?
yeah. I think we always try to bring out a new beer every year or so. And we just brought out a sour in our American wheat last year, but I've got a couple ideas and recipes that I've been working on this off season for at least one new beer. Cherry Hut is the place where there's room to grow and for things to change a little bit. My location in Sturgeon Bay is pretty limited outside of the fact that that's kind of where we test our like one-off beers or our new beers and stuff. So you never know when you're in there that we may have to pull one of our flagship beers off the line and put something different on. But that's based on my availability and my ability to actually brew a beer that turns out. So, but the Cherry Hut, it's always a different music lineup every summer. Chef Miles in the kitchen always comes up with some new things. We always have a couple different wines, and there's always new shit on the walls. Like I always find junk to hang up on the walls and stuff like that. So it's an ever changing and ever evolving place up north for sure. But it's always a great place to stop. We have so many locals and so many regulars that stop there, and it's the same place every time they come. But it's just it's a great spot. Real easy, chill vibes. Just come and enjoy some beer.
So Door County is, and we talked a little bit about this, but Door County is very much a seasonal destination, and your Fish Creek location is open seasonally. How do
Yep.
you go about planning for that? Summer is packed and crazy and wild in Door County, and fall tends to be pretty busy too. And then you go into winter, and
Mm.
and it's real slow up in Door County. So
Yeah.
how do you plan for that?
So first of all, my time is spent at the Cherry Hut most of the summer because it's a bigger animal. So I'm there with my GM most of the time. I'm in Sturgeon Bay in the morning just to get the register set up with money and just, if I got a beer in the fermenter, do what I got to do there. But I have a freaking such an awesome staff that's been with me forever. Like I have no turnover. The only way I have turnovers is if they go get a big person job in another state or something. But I have people, they all have big people jobs, and they work, this is their fun job. So my Sturgeon Bay location is run exclusively by my part-time taproom staff, and people love them. They're awesome. They embody what I hold as values, and what Bridge Up stands for. They embody that. So it's perfect. So summer, like you said, I do very little brewing in the summer. I really rely on Three Sheeps to take the bulk of that. The fall is, I always say if the fall was as long as the summer, we'd double our money, because the fall is super crazy too.
Yeah.
But the winter is time to...
Fall would happen a little bit slower.
Right. Exactly. The winter is time for me to reconnect with my family, because I'm gone a lot in the summertime, but also time for me to meet with my staff and figure out what we need to do differently, or what ideas they've had, or what they've heard from customers that we could do better or change or whatever. But it's also time to just kind of like chill out a little bit, because it is slow. It is slow. But it's great, because that's when you see like the regulars and the locals that come in all the time, and you get to connect with them. But that does pose a challenge when you distribute beer and you have beer. So like I'm brewing all summer long, and then it shuts off like a light switch. And beer isn't like wine. It doesn't get better with age. And we have such a small area of distribution, and it's dead everywhere. Nobody's drinking beer, and if they are drinking beer, it's like Busch Light 30 packs, up here. So, which is fine. Me too. But so my distributor up here in Door County was just acquired by another distributor who has a large presence in other areas of Wisconsin. So my distribution just grew. So that should alleviate some of the pains that I had with like, okay, I got a lot of beer and not a lot of people to drink it type of thing, because I hate to throw that beer away, and I've had to do that lots of times. So I'm excited about that. So that should alleviate kind of the main crappy part about the off season is, having beer sit around.
So speaking of that, for anyone listening outside of the tap room, where else can they find your beer?
All up and down Door and Kewaunee County for sure.
Okay.
Pretty much every convenience store, every grocery store. There's a handful of cool bars and restaurants that carry us. So pretty much, you'll find us everywhere. But the cheapest place to get it, at least in package, in a 6-pack, is in our tap rooms. But the best place to drink it is in our tap rooms, of course. But then we will, as of like, probably a month, like we'll be available probably all around Brown and, so Green Bay area. And then the distributorship kind of goes north from there. So
okay.
O'Connell, Marinette, all the way up into Ashland County. So you'll be able to find us at, where we belong, kind of that towny bar. That's where we play, because we're just a blue collar brewery. We're just brewing, really good beer, but not trying to knock anybody's socks off. We don't need to be anybody's favorite, but we just want you to, if you work a hard day and you want something really good to drink, look for a Bridge Up. So that's the kind of place we want to be, is at those. If the bar has no windows at all, that's really where we want to be.
That's a point. No windows, cash only. That's
right.
That's the sweet spot for
exactly. With a big ATM sign on the one window that it does have.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
well, Trent, so really exciting news to hear that your beer is going to be available, more widespread, even more outside of Door and Kewaunee counties now too in Wisconsin. And so for our listeners, definitely, of course, head to Sturgeon Bay all year long, but then
for sure,
summer, head up to Fish Creek and check out your spaces. Both spaces are unique, but also both beautiful spaces. You mentioned live music. You have a lot of live music, especially in the summertime, but are there other events or things that you guys are doing in the tap rooms that people should be aware of?
We do a lot of stuff just kind of like at the spur of the moment. Someone will come in and be like, hey, can I host a birthday party here or whatever? Or, hey, you should do a chili cook-off, or, hey, whatever. So there's always something going on. But, the only thing that we really schedule is we call it Falltoberfest up at the Cherry Hut. It's always the first weekend in October. There's nothing else going on in Door County. It's kind of before the fall festival season. So we just host our own like Oktoberfest in our parking lot. So it's brats and burgers and pulled pork sandwiches on the grill outside. We pull off all our beers and put on. So I brew an Oktoberfest, and we have that on. But then we get Oktoberfest and fall like beers from cool breweries all over the country. So every beer on tap is hopefully something that you've never had before. People go crazy over Falltoberfest or Oktoberfest style beers for 1 month a year. Don't try to sell one in November 2nd. Nobody wants your old Oktoberfest,
You started in August.
right? It's like Christmas. So that's really like our big thing that we do, and it's awesome. And we book like really kick butt music for that. We kind of break the bank on bringing in some big names and stuff like that. And yeah, so that's really the only thing that's going on. But I'd say check our Facebook and Instagram, but my social media's got hacked probably 2 months ago or so. Someone who hacked it must have posted something really bad because they kicked me out for like 180 days or something. So,
My God.
and it's like impossible. There's like no number to call. You can't call like John Meta and be like, "Hey, dude, what's going on with stuff?" And
Hey, Mr. Zuckerberg, help.
yeah, hey, business account here, just trying to make go of things. But so I'd say check that out. But it's we don't exist anymore in the meta world, metaverse. So I would say check our website, but I don't update that very often either. But yeah, our websites are pretty good. So like if you want to know what music is going on, what our music calendar is at the Cherry Hut, probably come April, I'll have that updated so you can see all the acts and plan your vacation around Pat McCurdy playing on Sundays or whatever.
I'm in. That sounds great.
13 times he plays at the Cherry. He loves it there.
Maybe you've got it figured out there. Maybe it's just delete the social media. Everybody listening, just go delete your social media.
Yeah.
Get outside, get up to Door County, and have a beer and listen to Pat McCurdy play at the Cherry Hut.
McCurd Sunday.
And sing Sex and Beer.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Sex and good beer. And hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's good sex and good beer. Or bad sex and bad beer. Sounds like a win to me either way.
Good. Well, but you can only control the beer portion of that, Trent.
Correct. Yeah. So no, I agree. I've enjoyed the break. Honestly, I had a pretty unhealthy relationship with social media. From like, obviously I do all my own social media. So I loved like posting and like doing the videos and like telling people what's going on and like, hey, and I missed that, but I was just on it constantly looking at other breweries, and the algorithms, that's a real thing. I mean, you get sucked in. And so the person who's the most happy that I got locked out of my social media is my wife. I am much more present, and my marriage has never been better since like maybe the first year of our marriage. No, I've enjoyed the break, and quite frankly, I'm going to see how it goes without. I don't know. Do I need it? I don't know. I'm hoping that people are feeling kind of the same way I am and are like, you know what? Like you said, turn it off. Who cares? People figured out where shit was back in the day. Like I didn't, my mom knew where I was somehow. You just might have to call on the landline a few other moms and be like, is my kid there? Oh, no, he just left. He was going to Scotty's house next. It's like, oh, okay. You'll track him down. And when I had to find my dad at the bar, you just have to call a couple bars and be like, hey, is
the bartender and ask
Mr. Snyder here? They're like, no, he just left. Damn well my dad's like, he just left. He'll be right home, So, no.
Well, that very much aligns with your beers in a lot of the towny bars, the hole in the wall bars. Just cut the social media very much aligns with that.
Yeah, I think we
none
should.
of them are on social.
No,
or have a website.
We don't need that.
No, their website says coming soon when you go there.
Yes, exactly. Well, Trent, the last question we always ask on Pour Another Round, and we maybe will start adding the favorite brewery that you've never
might have to.
I would love that. I would love if you did.
But the last question we always ask is, if you're not drinking your own beer, what might we find you drinking? And maybe you already answered that.
Maine doesn't count for this question.
But skip no Maine beer and none of your beer.
Yeah.
What might we find drinking?
Oh, man. People might boycott me for this one, but I'm a Coors Banquet guy.
Hell yeah.
I feel like I didn't watch Yellowstone that much, but I see, like, clips of it on, like, YouTube and stuff. I don't know, he's, like, one of the main characters, big guy, always wears black. But anyway, I can't think of his name, but, I saw an episode where he, like, must have had a bad day, and he's, like, walks up the stairs to his, like, log cabin, and his, like, girlfriend's sitting on the stairs, and he kinda gives her, like, the one finger of, like, "Don't say anything." Goes in the house, comes out with a six-pack of Coors Banquet Stubbies, and he just, like, drains one, like, in 30 seconds, and she's like and she goes, "You feel better?" And he puts up the finger again, and he opens up another one and drains that one, and then he's like, "Now I feel better," you know? It's like and that I've done that so many times. I've come home after a hard day, and I pull in the garage, and the beer fridge is right next to the door to get into our mudroom. Sometimes I'll have my hand on that doorknob, and I'm like, "You know, I'll be a much better person after about 2 of these banquets." So I freaking crank 2 down, you know, I'll crank 1 down and maybe walk in with 1, but there's just something about it. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the stubby bottle, but, like, I love that stuff, and I could drink 10. You won't like me, but I could drink 10 of those. You know, I mean, that's probably what you catch me drinking most of. I'll be honest with you, I don't drink as much beer as I used to.
Mhm.
When you're around it all the time, it just kinda loses a little something. I mean, I reserve it for, like, the stuff that I know is, like, really good. You know what I mean? Like, I used to, like, love to go to the liquor stores and, like, just mix a sixer, you know, and that's kinda when I was doing, like, R&D and, like, figuring out, like, oh, what everybody else is doing, you know? But now I'm more of a bourbon, do a lot of
Sure.
bourbon, just because I don't drink as much. I'm old, I'm 50 years old, like, dude, I can't function for, like, a week if I tie one on, you know? So, like, I may be,
You're
like,
not gonna hammer down 10 of those course banquets anymore.
no, 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 like, this is good enough for me. I feel like my face is a little warm after this one, and I am gonna go out for wings at this place that does have our Stubborn Sturgeon on tap, and it is the coldest beer you can get without it being a slush. I don't know how they do that, but that Stubborn Sturgeon in this place, it's called Waterfront Mary's. It's a great spot for wings on Wednesday. It's like cheap wings, you know? But frickin' cold beer, man, you get like a cold headache. You literally get a cold headache when you drink that stuff. So I will have 1 or 2 of those with my wings just because I have to. The wings are hot. Need to
Yeah,
tame it down with a cold beer.
cool down.
Yeah. Has anybody answered, that question with a Coors Banquet before in your 156 episodes?
We've had Coors Banquet mentioned.
Okay.
I
I don't
don't
know
know
if
if it's been
it's
their
their
primary answer.
primary. Yeah,
Got
there
it.
has been a number of bourbons,
Sure.
answered.
I think that's a hard question, and I think it's hard because there's a lot of good beers out there. You know, there is, and I think you kinda just you forget and I think most people would agree with me, the beers that you remember, like, if you didn't drink them at home, like, if you drank them in the tap room, you know, at the brewery, you remember those beers based on the time you had that when you were there, you know what I'm saying? I probably drank a lot of very marginal beers, but had a great time doing it. It was a fun atmosphere. My kids were entertained, you know, this, that, and the other thing. So that's really what we try to do at Bridge Up is just create an environment where you're going to go home and talk about the time you spent with us, you know, and you probably won't talk about the beer. I doubt you're going to say, man, remember that place we went? That beer was so good. What was the name of that? No, you're going to sit around the table and be like, man, next time we go to Door County, we got to go back to Bridge Up. That place was awesome. You know, the kids had games to play. They were running around outside. You know, we were with mom and dad and, you know, up at the Chariot and mom only drinks Chablis. And, you know, she was able to get a glass of Chablis and dad won't stop talking about that Chicago style hot dog he got there and blah, blah, blah. And what the neighbors are going to Door County? Well, we got to tell them to stop at the Chariot. You know, that's what we want. The beer is the catalyst to get people in the door to have a good time. So even if you're not a beer drinker, get your butt to the hut and get to Bridge Up. You'll have a good time. The beauty of Bridge Up is we're right below a full bar. So you can go upstairs and get your White Claw or your, you know, Chardonnay or your old fashioned, but just come hang out in the tap room and hang out with other really cool people that are there to hang out and have a good time.
Well, Trent, I think that just about covered it. I mean, for anybody listening, you're gonna have good time getting up to Bridge Up anywhere in Door County, whether you're on the south end at Sturgeon Bay or heading up north to Fish Creek. Stop on by, check out both of their tap rooms, and hey, distribution's getting even wider. Find their beer out on the shelves and crack one open for us. Trent, thank you so much for coming on with us today. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I can't wait to get up to Bridge Up and try out some of these beers.
Yeah, get up there. Come on. Beer's on me.
Love it.
We'll have a good time. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I hate myself for waiting for 2 years to do this. This was a blast. So I appreciate it. This is I've done about 10 podcasts. This is a
Always
cool
worth
one.
the
So
wait.
I appreciate you guys. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, cool. Well,
Thanks,
for all of
Trent.
our listeners, pour another round for us when you do get up to Bridge Up. And Trent, thank you, and cheers, everyone.